There's an interesting story about two boys who were always getting into trouble. One of them was 9 years old and one of them was 8 years old. And their parents didn't know what to do with them. They couldn't discipline them correctly. The boys just always got into trouble. And the parents eventually found out that there was a pastor in town who kind of specialized in disciplining children. And so they called the pastor up, they set up a meeting, they took the boys, sat them down in the lobby of the church, and the pastor came out and took the 9-year-old by the hand and led him into the office. He sat the boy down and he looked at him very intently and said, "Son, where is God?" And the boy didn't know what to do. He kind of looked around and couldn't figure out what to say, and the pastor finally said a little bit louder, a little bit more demanding, "Son, where is God?" The boy got scared. He started trembling a little bit and he didn't say nothing, and the pastor finally just had to say it a little bit louder, a little bit more demanding, "Where is God?" Well, the boy got super scared and he jumped up out of his seat. He ran out the door, grabbed his brother by the hand, and they jetted out of the church. They ran down the street and they just kept on running all the way to their house. They got to their house, busted through the door, ran upstairs, and hid inside of a closet. The younger brother looked over and said, what was that all about?" And the older brother said, "I have no idea, but we are in huge, huge trouble. God is missing and they think that we took him." Kind of a goofy little story, but I think sometimes we have that same mentality about who God is, like God is some cosmic being that's been misplaced, or that God is not infinite, that he's not all-powerful, but instead he is just a concept or a thing that can easily be defined. In reality, God is God, and we cannot compress him into a shoebox of ideas. We need to get real with what we say we believe about God. That's what we've been talking about over the last few weeks, getting real about who God is. Last week we talked about King Jesus, and now we need to get real with the call that King Jesus makes. Jesus has issued a call to every person, everyone who's ever existed, and that call is this. Jesus says, "Come, follow me." Many of you, at some point in your life, have answered that call. You have turned to Jesus and said, "Yes, I believe you, Jesus, and I will follow you. I want to be your disciple." But I think many Christians out there, they follow Jesus kind of like they might follow Simon in a game of Simon Says. You remember the game? The person up front, they call him Simon, and he says, "Simon says, touch your nose," and everybody has to do it. And if they say something like, lift your arm without saying Simon Says, then you're out, right? Well, I think that we tend to follow Jesus kind of like we play a game of Simon Says. Some people, they'll participate in the game, but they don't really care. I mean, I've seen this with youth many times. They'll play the game, but then they just don't really care. They're like, oh, Simon didn't say, oh well, and then they'll sit down. I also think that some people will follow or participate, but it's just a game, it's just fun. Hey, we're going to go through the motions. Let's just have fun with this. Others, I think, follow in a game of Simon Says. They follow to the T. They follow every move, and they're determined. They want to win. And so they go through this whole game and they're watching intently, and they do not do anything unless Simon says, and they win the game. But they never loved Simon. And I think we do that as Christians. We follow Jesus, we follow him to the T, we watch everything he does, and we do all the right things. We become the good people, but we've never truly loved him. And I think that is the point that we need to expand upon a little bit. We need to learn to not just follow, not just be the good person, not just do the right things, but we need to love. There are two major ways to gain followers if you're going to be a leader. And we can see this throughout history. One way is to kind of rule with an iron fist. Everybody's afraid of you, so you're going to follow, right? Like Caesar or Alexander the Great. They kind of ruled with that iron fist. Nobody wanted to cross paths with them, and so they gained followers. Then you have someone like Jesus. The second way is to be so relational, to be so loving that you have no choice but to be relational back and to be loving back. That's the way Jesus did it. He was so loving. He was so relational. He reached out to everybody, and everybody wanted to follow him. And I think that Jesus showed love to all, and it demanded love back. See, if you've ever run into somebody who truly showed you love and that they really cared for you, how did you feel towards them? You loved them back. And that's the way Jesus set up his rule, his kingdom. There's a scene in Luke chapter 5 and verses 1 through 11. And it begins this adventure that Peter, Simon Peter in the Bible, was about to face. It's where Jesus first encountered Peter. And I'm going to give you a quick rundown of what's going on in this scene, and you can see the scripture flash up above me here. But I'm not going to read it all. But basically, Jesus was preaching at the Sea of Galilee, and as he was there, there were just so many people, and they were pushing him closer and closer to the water's edge, and he didn't have room to move, didn't have room to do anything. And eventually he looked over and saw a couple empty boats, and because the owners had kind of left them to wash their nets. And so he went and got into the boats, and he asked Peter, one of the owners, to push him out into the water. So he did that, and I can imagine Peter's probably in the boat with him at the time. And he continues to preach to the crowd from the boat. Well, after he's done preaching, Jesus has Peter go on out to the water and says, let's go fishing. And so they go out there, and Peter says, Jesus, we've been trying to fish all night long, and there's just no fish out here. And Jesus says, cast your nets out there anyway. And so Peter, he does that. And this miracle happens. They start hauling in this loads and loads of fish. And it's so much so that Peter hollers out to his buddies who are in another boat, and they come over and they begin to haul in loads and loads of fish too. And the scripture says that there was so much fish that the boat began to sink. And at this point, Peter is just in awe. And so is his friends too. They're all in awe. But Peter says, Master, I'm a sinner. You should not be here with me. But Jesus said, listen, don't be afraid. I'm going to make you a fisher of men. And that's the first encounter that Jesus had with Peter. And that began this huge adventure. And if you read the story of Peter and how he interacted with Jesus, you see this same kind of rule that Jesus had, this I love you, Peter. And Peter was truly dedicated even to the end. Even through mistakes, even through mess-ups, he was true to Jesus. But it says that they left everything to follow Jesus. They left everything to follow Jesus. So what does it mean to follow Jesus? What does it mean to be Jesus' disciple? But if we want to get real about it, then we need to hear from Jesus himself. He actually describes what it means to be a follower of his in Matthew chapter 16, verses 24 through 26. So I'm going to read that. It says, Then Jesus said to his disciples, If any of you wants to be my followers, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but you lose your soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? This is a pretty demanding passage. Jesus says if you want to be his follower, you need to turn from your selfish ways. That's step one. Turn from your selfish ways. That is a hard thing to do. We all want things for ourselves. I'm king of my life, right? No, Jesus needs to be king of our life. But I need to turn from my selfish ways. And then step two, Jesus says, you need to take up your cross and follow me. This is an interesting statement because Jesus hadn't hung on a cross yet. Okay, he hasn't carried the cross yet. And so I wonder what his disciples were thinking. What does Jesus mean? Take up your cross and follow me. Well, I think partly it means that there needs to be an ultimate sacrifice. You need to be willing to lay down your life for Jesus. You need to be willing to lay down your life for others the way Jesus was about to do. So take up your cross, and then step three is just to follow. If you want to know somebody, if you want to get to know someone or follow them, what do you have to do? You need to learn about them. Learn who that person is. Study them. Get to know them. Hang out with them. Talk to them. That's exactly what it means to follow Jesus. Get to know him. Read his word. Pray to him. Talk to him. Talk with others about him so you can learn more. To follow Jesus also means to follow grace. We could conclude with Peter's story where Jesus had already died on the cross. He was resurrected. And then Peter and Jesus meet again and they talk. There's a scene acted out by the Skit Guys. Great comedy duo. I'd like you to watch this clip.
Jesus, is that you? You're alive. I can't believe you're alive. Okay, I was in the boat and I wasn't catching any fish, okay? But I heard this voice and the voice said, cast your net to the other side. And so I'm thinking, I'm a fisherman. I know what I'm doing, but I'm not catching any fish, And so I throw that net over there and then a gaggle of fish pop into that net and I'm going, this is a total miracle. Who could have done that? I need to know who told me to throw the net to the other side. And boom, I look up and there is you. You're looking at me on the seashore going, it is I, the Lord. You're alive. I can't believe you're alive. This is awesome. Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on.
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
Yes, I love you. I love you. You're alive. This is so great.
Good, then feed my sheep.
Andrew, get out of the boat. Come on, man. It's him.
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
I love you, yes. And I'm so sorry about that rooster clucking. I had no idea what that meant, but I do now. I'm better for it, all right? Okay?
Then feed my sheep.
Andrew, I'm smiling, but I'm serious. Come on, get out of the boat. It's him.
Peter.
Yeah.
Do you love me?
Jesus, mere words cannot describe the passion that I have for you. I love you. You know everything. I love you.
Good. Good. Then feed my sheep.
I didn't even know you had livestock. That is so like you, though. There's something new about you all the time. That's what I love about you.
Peter,
Yeah.
do you remember the morning the ladies went to the tomb?
Yeah. We're all in the upper room trying to figure out what to do next, because we thought you were dead. You were dead, and we're trying to figure all that out, And Mary comes running up, and Mary's like saying, beehive, beehive, beehive. And I'm thinking, I'm allergic to bees. Like, keep them out. You know what I'm saying? But as she kept getting closer, I heard her correctly. She was saying, he's alive, he's alive, he's alive. And we're going, who's alive, who's alive? And she said, she was at the tomb, and the tomb was empty. And she said that there was an angel there. And the angel said, go tell the disciples and Peter that everything is okay, he is risen. And so, me and John, we hightailed it down there, and if John says he beat me, he's totally lying, all right? I beat him, FYI, all right, And we get down there, and I'm looking in that tomb, and it is empty. There's nothing in there, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And John is right there. John is so good with words. He should write a book. He is so good with words. And John said, don't you get it, Peter? This is everything Jesus said he was going to do, and you did it, and it's done. Let's go. This is so great.
Wait, the angel said what?
Go tell the disciples and Peter that everything is okay. He is risen. You've risen. Let's go.
He said what?
Go tell the disciples and Peter. Go tell the disciples and Peter. You said my name. Why did you say my name?
Peter, that's grace.
No, I don't deserve that, because that night people kept coming up to me asking me if I belonged to you, if I was with you, and I kept denying you left and right, all right? No, it'll take me my whole life to make up for what I did. It was unforgivable for what I did.
No. What I did on the cross was meant to take what is unforgivable and make it forgivable. That's my grace. It's not about you. It's always about me. That's grace, Peter.
I truly believe that Jesus is calling your name. He calls you to follow him. He calls your name and says, I love you. He calls your name and says, come, follow me. Let's get real about following Jesus.